Let's talk about the best unit on the football team. Let's talk about those linebackers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ryan Harings. Thank you for making this one of your first stops every day. Locked On is your team every single day. Really appreciate you being a part of this community, being along for the journey, wherever you're getting it, if it's on YouTube, if it's in the car, on audio, whatever it is, thank you so much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, let's talk about what I think is, bar none, the best unit on the team from top to bottom in terms of athleticism, in terms of upside, in terms of depth, in terms of young upside. I think this is the best spot on the team. It's the linebackers. It's the changing of the guard. Let's start there. What changed this offseason? 4 guys are out, right? Muma Nanjameta, Petroyski's gone, Turner's gone, CJ Getz is gone. And then they bring in 8 bodies. They bring in 5 transfers, multiple freshmen. They have completely revamped this room. And what they did is they looked at the offseason and they said, we're not fast enough here. We're not athletic enough here. And talking to one of these guys that's involved in one of the transfer portal additions, he said, the coaching staff said that. They said they needed to be faster. They said they need to be quicker on the edges. And they targeted that. They went out in the portal and they completely revamped this unit. I can't wait to see it. And I'm not here to blow sunshine and rainbows. I have questions with TVD still. I have questions with offensive line depth. I have major questions with the defensive line. I'm not sure about the tight ends. But I love the linebackers. I think it's deep, athletic, fast, versatile. Let's get into the first big question I have here. And the first one is, how many are going to play? Right? Because it's really fun to rattle off the names, but how many are actually going to play a meaningful role, whether as a starter or, somebody who comes in certain situations during the game in the 2 deep and plays every single game outside of garbage time, right? Because let's talk about the portal guys he brought in. Jaheim Thomas was Arkansas's leading tackler. He's coming here to start, period. Leon Lowery started at Syracuse. He's coming here to start or play a huge role. John Pius was a All-American at the FCS level at William & Mary. He's coming to play. Tackett Curtis was one of the highest-rated portal guys in the country. Now, he's had some injury issues, but he would be coming here to play. Sebastian Cheeks was a former 4-star guy. And then from last year, you have Daryl Peterson, who was a starter. He's here to play. Jake Chaney was a starter. Christian Allegro was coming on fast. And then you have high upside guys like Thomas Heiberger, who is just all arms and athleticism and speed and burst. Anelu Lafayette, great edge rusher coming out of the prep ranks in the 2024 class. So how many of these guys will actually play? It's one of my first questions. I think you're looking at 5 at least, or 5 to 6, who are going to play pretty major roles, right? Let me give you those numbers, and then we'll talk about who I think is on the fringe. So Jaheim Thomas is playing. We talked about it. He's a weapon. If you haven't watched film on Jaheim Thomas yet, he's like a viper out there. Very quick, great in space, really good tackler, diagnosis, can do a little bit of everything. Jaheim Thomas is playing. Jake Chaney's playing. I love Jake Chaney. Absolutely love Jake Chaney. Daryl Peterson's playing. Leon Lowery's playing. John Pius is playing. Those 5 are guaranteed. There's 5 guaranteed. You can etch those in a cement block right now and put them in your foundational wall because it's not changing. Barring injury, those 5 are playing. So who does that leave? It leaves Tackett Curtis, Christian Allegro, Tyler Jansey, Sebastian Cheeks. Who of that group? Aaron Witt? Who of that group is going to play? I think Tackett Curtis is going to play as he gets his feet wet. I think Christian Allegro is going to play. Christian Allegro is too good to not play some. Last year, at the end of last year, we all talked about, it's funny, we did a whole show on Christian Allegro and we said, this dude's a starter next year. Because if you go back to Christian Allegro in high school, he was a hybrid safety linebacker, great in space, could really run. He was at a prep school in Connecticut. And there were points in last year's season where Allegro felt like the only linebacker who could run. He was the only guy physically that you looked at and you're like, that really looks like a big player out there in the linebacking core. So I think he's going to play. So you're up to 6 or 7 with Tackett. Aaron Witt could get some reps if he can get healthy in kind of that run stuffer spot, that edge spot. then maybe situationally one of the freshmen sneaks in there for some reps, Lafayette or Harburger, but I think those are redshirt guys. I think those are guys who get some reps to get their feet wet, but you keep them under the 4 games. So I think the number you're looking at is 6 or 7. It's those 5 guarantees, and then it's some combination of Tackett Curtis, Christian Allegro is going to play. So it's some combination of Tackett Curtis, maybe Sebastian Cheeks plays a little bit more than we're thinking. Maybe one of the freshmen, maybe Tyler Jancy. It's some combination of that group. And then how they fit is something I can't wait to see. So last year, I think Wisconsin got a little stuck in because they didn't have bodies at the linebacker spot. You kind of had to use these players as every down guys, right? Whereas Daryl Peterson is probably better, I think, as an edge guy in first and second down, setting the edge, being physical against the run. This year, you can maybe take him off in that spot and bring in John Pius to rush the passer, right? This year, you can mix and match more because there's much more versatility. When you look at the different chess pieces that Mike Tressel and Coach Mitchell have to deploy, they have many more types of linebackers now. They have edge guys like Pius. They have longer edge guys like Lowery, bigger physical guys like Jake Chaney, who has a great offseason to develop as that inside linebacker. They have explosive, experienced guys like Jaheim Thomas. They're going to be able to mix and match much more this year. And I can't wait to see on first down, like who do they line up? Who do they trust in that base defense? And then on third down, who are they bringing in to cover that tight end, cover that running back on a wheel route, to rush the passer? They're going to be able to do a lot more of that. And I think it's going to power the defense this year. It's going to make the defensive line better because you're going to have more pressure coming off the edges. The offensive line is going to have to be more aware of that. That's going to open up things for the defensive line. It's going to make the secondary better because you're going to have more disruption. I think you're going to put opposing offenses in more second and longs, third and longs, which is going to allow you to cover a little bit better, not be as susceptible to the play action passing. I think it's going to make the third down defense better. That was one of the biggest weaknesses of last year's team. We got gashed on third down. We were not where we normally are. Wisconsin typically in the last 10 years has been an elite third down defense. We got gashed last year. The linebackers, that's going to be maybe the biggest spot they make a difference. That quarterback scrambling on 3rd and 5, instead of outrunning Getz or Peterson or Muma or Turner to the edge, I think they're going to have to outrun Pius, Thomas, and Lowery, right? Instead of that running back getting a 4-yard, just kind of out route, a catch in the flat and having to get the edge. Now they're going to have to do that against the Thomas or Pius. I think the defense is going to be so much better because this linebacker group, I can't wait to see it. Again, I think you're going to see 5 or 6 or 7 guys, and the versatility there is going to be really interesting to watch. The next one I kind of want to talk about is kind of where they're going to play right now. Outside, inside, all of football has become a little more positionless. It's kind of, the basketball has as well. Like it's more like we're going to move people around. We're going to find spots. We're going to have positional flexibility. And some downs are going to be a 3-3-5, and some downs it's going to be a 4-2-5. Some of these guys are going to put their hand in the dirt on 3rd and long. But I think what you're looking for, Chaney's an inside guy. Allegro's an inside guy. I think Thomas, they're going to flip around. I think he can play outside or inside. I know part of the plan and part of the selling point for Tackett Curtis was we're going to put Jaheim Thomas on the outside. So I think he's going to play kind of everywhere. Peterson's an outside guy. Pius is an outside guy. I think Sebastian Cheeks, the book is still kind of out on him. I think he could probably do a little bit of either. Probably more of an inside guy, if I'm being honest. But so I think you're kind of looking at on the outside, Peterson, Pius, Lowery, some Jaheim. And then the young guys, Lafayette and Heiberger. On the inside, I think you're kind of looking Chaney for sure. Tyler Jancy's an inside guy. Christian Allegro. Thomas is going to play some inside, and Tackett Curtis when he gets there. So I think that's how they kind of want to align it, but there's so many pieces. And it's almost like if you have a really nice tool set, you can tackle a whole bunch of different jobs, right? And last year, our tool set was at times, it felt like the set you buy at Kmart for your mom. It has like 3 tools in it, and they're supposed to do everything. And they don't really work great in every situation. Now you have more tools. You have a DeWalt tool set now where you can really do a lot of different things depending on what you're trying to accomplish. With the right tool is going to make it a lot easier for this defense and all the pieces working better together. So not sure if that was a great analogy, but I do think they've really upgraded in that room. I cannot wait to see it. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about the 5 I'm most excited to see, the huge role the returning guys have, who I think is next up after these starters, most NFL upside guy in this room, a ton to talk about with this linebacker room that I think is completely loaded. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at eBay Motors. eBay Motors remains the ultimate spot to go get everything for your ride or die. Listen, our ride or dies, our cars, our Jeeps, our vehicles, our trucks, our vans, our scooters, whatever it is, they get us from point A to point B safely. They carry our family. They get our groceries. They take me to the card store so I can buy Brock Purdy rookie cards. Our ride or die gets us everywhere. Now, this is your opportunity to take care of your car. Go over to eBay Motors, over 122 million parts. Fast, easy, simple way to shop whatever you need for your car. Audio parts, fenders, antennas, floor mats, transmissions, spark plugs, whatever it is. Go find it at eBay Motors. You're going to get the right parts, check. The right fit, check. The right prices, check. And you get the eBay Guaranteed Fit. It's available to U.S. customers, only available to U.S. customers. Exclusions do apply. But it is the best way to buy car parts. Fast, easy, simple. Go over to eBay Motors. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Keep your ride or die alive over at ebaymotors.com. Go do that right now. Take care of your ride or die. All right, let's talk about the 5 I'm most excited to see this year. And this was actually a harder list. In some positions, this is a little easier than others. This was kind of a hard list for me. Here's my 5 guys I'm most excited to see play this year and why. The first is Jaheim Thomas. It's weird. I don't feel like people are as excited about him as we should be. And it's hard to, that's a strange thing to say about a guy who led Arkansas in tackles last year, was I think 6th in the SEC. But it's almost like it's got overshadowed a little bit. Tackett Curtis was almost a higher profile guy. They added a bunch of other dudes. Brady Collins is talking about John Pius. Everyone's excited about what Daryl Peterson and Jake Chaney did in the offseason. This guy was a star in the SEC. And by the way, and I keep saying this, but I'm going to keep nailing this point. He's a guy this coaching staff knows because they had him in Cincinnati. They're not going to go re-recruit somebody unless they absolutely love him, right? They know what he's like. They know what he's like in the locker room. They understand his fit. They understand his work ethic. I'm telling you, I think he's a star, man. Led the SEC in tackles. He's coming here to put a little more film in and then go to the league. Now, the film is really interesting with him when you watch him. Really quick, great in space, instinctual, good tackler. I think at times he overruns a little bit. That's a bit of the knock on him. A few missed tackles here and there, but absolute upgrade in athleticism. And a guy who's been through the wars in the SEC. He's played the best of the best. And now you're adding him into a defense. He has familiarity with the coaches. I am so excited to see Jaheim Thomas. Love his game. Number 2 is John Pius. So we'll go transfer back to back. He's the breakout guy of the team. He's the breakout guy in the Big Ten, right? Maybe not the Big Ten, but he's going to be up there. This is a guy that people outside of Wisconsin and people who don't really follow it really closely, like the crazies, they don't know this name. At the end of the year, they're going to look at this guy and say, what a pickup. What a pickup for the Badgers. 6'4" guy that runs 21 miles an hour. And it's just elite athleticism, all-American at the FCS level. Really, really nice pickup. Big, fast, strong. Again, and what did this team really struggle with at the linebacker spot last year? It wasn't as much setting the edge. It wasn't as much being able to play the run, even though there were issues there. It was disrupting the passing game. It was getting quick pressure. It was tracking down quarterbacks. This is a guy that can absolutely bend the edge. He's got the speed, athleticism. It has to translate still, right? He coming up a big level. It has to translate, but the early returns, he was one of the stars in spring. Brady Collins is raving about him. There's enough smoke in the air where you can start to talk about the fire. And I think this guy is going to be really good this year. I don't know if he's a true 3-down guy. I'm not sure how he's going to hold up in the rushing game. If you put a big 310-pound tackle on him, I don't know how well he's going to hold up there. But let's be honest. The name of the game is getting after the quarterback. The name of the game is protecting your the name of the game is finding a quarterback, protecting your quarterback, and hitting the other dude's quarterback. Pius can do one of those things. I'm pretty sure he can anyway. We'll see if he can at this level, but he's proven he can at his level, and I think the athleticism translates. I've talked about it before. Traits translate. If you run 21 miles an hour, you run 21 miles an hour, whether you're at the FCS level or if you're in the NFL or anywhere in between. It translates. Athleticism translates. The next guy I'm really excited to see, Jake Chaney. Jake Chaney was one of my favorite linebackers on last year's team. I felt like people overlooked his game, right? Because the linebackers as a whole suffered. Everybody kind of got stuck in that anchor and drugged down. Chaney, to me, was the most instinctual of that group. I thought he got in the backfield. He was a little slow in a couple plays, but I thought he showed out the best. And then you bring in these transfer portal guys, and a lot of players would have left. Both Daryl Peterson and Jake Chaney said, nah, we're good. We're staying. We're competing. And listen, by all accounts, Chaney and Peterson had a great offseason. Like, they stepped up their level of competition to to stay in lockstep with the better competition coming in. I think Chaney is a guy who, similar to Chris Orr in some ways, where he's a coach's kid, he understands football, he gives a crap. And even though there's other guys on the team that are bigger, faster, maybe a little stronger, you're not going to be able to get Chaney off the field a ton because intangibly what he brings is really strong. And he's a physical dude. I think he's going to knife through in the middle of that line of scrimmage, get penetration. I like Chaney a lot. I can't wait to see him. Christian Allegro, the young guy who's going to build off last year, he's a guy who you might see more of in 2 years, right? When Jaheim Thomas is gone, when some of these players graduate out. But I'm telling you, Allegro has the physical skill set that's unique. Played last year as a true freshman, drew rave reviews. I think it was obvious when he got on the field. This is one of the better athletes we have. I can't wait to see him this year. And then Leon Lowery's the other guy. Played a ton at Syracuse, one of the first transfer guys that we got in. Great frame. I think he's going to be good in run defense. Also someone who's going to give you 4 or 5 sacks probably. I think Lowery might be our most well-rounded linebacker out of the entire group. Someone who I think can play the edge, can play some coverage, can drop a little bit, can rush, has experience at a power 4 level. Really excited to see what Lowery brings. Let's talk about the returners, Peterson and Chaney, Allegro. It's going to be nice to see them mix in. And then I want to talk about the 2D, right? Let's talk about the next wave, because this is also where, when I talk about the best unit on the team, it's not just that top 5 or 6 I talked about that we just talked about. It's also who's coming up next. And you're looking at just a loaded team. For a while, Wisconsin was a pipeline for obviously offensive line, tight end, running backs, but also linebackers, right? There's linebackers everywhere in the NFL that have Wisconsin ties. Well, you're starting to see that rebuilt because this group behind these starters, Thomas Heiberger's a stud. Athletically, again, time will tell if it develops, but that is a high upside guy. Anelu Lafayette is a high upside guy. Tyler Jancey is a player lost a little bit in all this mix coming out of Illinois in last year's class. I talked to his coach. He's just a dude wired for football, great physique. Another guy who's had a good offseason. So Tyler Jancey, somebody, don't sleep on him. It's really easy to get lost in the shuffle with the high upside young guys and the transfers brought in. Jancey's a player who's going to probably make some noise by the time he's done here. Landon Gauthier, a tackling machine. Right, there's a lot of talent there. And then Sebastian Cheeks was a 4-star linebacker at UNC who transferred in, again, athleticism. You're starting to see waves of linebackers now built up. And this is going to be a position that not just this year, but over the next couple of years is going to be a ton of fun to watch. And by the way, coming in the 2025 class, Samuel Ateju, Mason Bosa, Brendan Ains, yes, please. Yes. Just more and more athleticism. This is a well-stocked pond, and this coaching staff has done a tremendous job doing it. One more person I wanted to kind of highlight as we go through these different spots and where they might play, Aaron Witt. Where's he going to play? What kind of impact can he make if he's healthy? He's an outside guy, big, physical, huge frame, long arms. He's going to set the edge and rush defense if he can get healthy and if he can play. Time will tell. There's very few people outside of him and Ches that I'm rooting for harder for to have a successful, healthy season, for all the injuries, for all the rehab, for everything that their teammates say about them, for as engaged as they stayed in the program. Aaron Witt and Ches Malusi, man, if there's any rosary beads or whatever we can do for good luck, bunnies, rabbit's foot, whatever the other weird lucky things are. I don't really have any of those, but absolutely hoping they make an impact. And if he's healthy, he can be another guy that fits into that rotation. So definitely somebody we're cheering for, hoping for. Hope he can stay healthy. All right, we're going to take one more quick break. We're going to get into who I think the MVP of this unit is, most likely to make the NFL, or the highest NFL upside, most explosive, most likely to be an all-conference guy, and then do a couple over-unders. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers as we talk about what I think is the deepest spot on this team. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show and a quick second to say thank you to everybody who's tuning in. Once again, thank you to everybody who's tuning in. Appreciate you guys. Let's talk a few questions with this group. Who do I think on this unit is most likely to make an all Big Ten conference team this year? I think it's Jaheim Thomas. I think, we all know how this works to some degree. All conference teams, all American teams, they're all a degree of popularity. So the more name recognition you have, the better. You're already a guy coming in that was really good in the SEC. So that's going to play in Jaheim's favor. He's going to play a ton. I think he's going to rack up stats. This coaching staff is bringing him in to play in all sorts of spots. I think he's going to play inside, outside. At the end of the year, I think you're going to see a couple forced fumbles, a pick or two, 100 tackles, some sacks. This is very easily a potential all-conference type guy. That's my answer for that one. Most explosive, John Pius. I think we talked about the speed numbers. We talked about the size. I think he's the most explosive on this team. Biggest NFL upside. I love this question. I think it's Thomas Heiberger. Now, he may have longer to get there than some other guys ahead of him, right? When you look at a Jaheim Thomas who's more developed. But to me, Heiberger is the guy you look at this roster and you say, that is the guy that has the highest upside on this team. 6'4", 6'5" frame, long arms, has already really developed and shown a strong impression in the strength and conditioning program. He's got a 38-inch vertical tested, right? Let's flash back into the recruiting battles for Thomas Heiberger. This was a player who was getting offers from big schools, Big 12 schools, from real schools, literally just based on his testing numbers. They didn't even see film. He took a picture of himself in like the doorway and then showed himself doing like a vertical jump and some cone drills. And Texas Tech? They're like, yeah, we'll take you. We don't even care if you've ever played football. Your athleticism is that unique. His NFL upside is through the charts if he develops. And I'm telling you, from everything I've talked to Brady Collins about, I've talked to him, I've talked to his head coach. It sounds like he's wired the right way. It sounds like he's the type of guy who's going to grind. And if you have a grinder with those type of physical skills and you can marry those things up, boy, the sky's the limit on that dude. I'll just be straight up with it. It might be a couple years away. He didn't play great competition in high school. That matters, right? It takes a while to ramp up to better competition. But I think you could see him on special teams this year. And in a year or two, like, look out if it all comes together for him with his athleticism. Who leads the team in sacks from this spot? I think it's John Pius. I think John Pius leads the team. I have the over-under on him set at 6.5. I'm going to take the over. I think he gets to 7.5. I think he's the guy that leads the team in sacks. I think Lowery's more well-rounded. I don't think you're going to get quite as much from the inside. Thomas is going to be a bit of a do-it-all guy. Chaney will add 4 or 5. I think Gerald Peterson can get 4 or 5. I think Pius is the guy that is the most explosive. I think he's the guy that bends the edge. I think he's the most dangerous dude they have racing around the outside tackle. So I'm going to go Pius. I'm going to say 6.5. Yeah. And the MVP of the unit is Jaheim Thomas. I just think he's the best all-around player. So that is the linebacker preview. I think it is a loaded group. I think it's the best group on the entire team when you look at the star power, when you look at the starting talent, when you look at the depth, when you look at what's coming in the pipeline. I also like Mitchell and Tressel as coaches managing this unit. I think this is the unit that drives the team on defense. It makes the defense line better. It's going to put opposing offenses in worse spots. That's going to make the defensive backs better. Cannot wait to watch them play. Biggest challenge is, again, going to be, how the coaching staff fits all this talent together. Egos matter. Playing time matters, right? These are all kids trying to get on the field. For the most part, all kids trying to get to the next level. They all want film. They're all good kids, but they're going to want to play. How the coaching staff manages that is going to be one of their biggest tests this year because there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of pieces. You got to make it all work together. Anyway, on Wisconsin, thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Badgers. When you're done here, go check out Locked On Packers, Locked On Brewers, Locked On Bucks. All the Wisconsin teams are covered over in the Locked On Network. Go give that a follow when you're done here on Wisconsin, and we will talk again tomorrow.